Hey girls, it's Monday. Stella, I miss you. I know that you're in high school and probably have a lot of work to do and that you've been having internet trouble, so I forgive you, but I miss you. Heather, that book that you read last week sounds really interesting, so I'm definitely gonna have to check that out because it sounds quite pertinent to my life. I finished Leviathan and am on to the second book in the trilogy. I really enjoyed Leviathan. Scott Westerfeld calls this an alternate history, and that's basically because it's set in World War I and the timeline revolves around some real events, but it's a fictional story. There are two main characters in this book. The first one is Alec, who is the fictitious son of Franz Ferdinand. You know, that Archduke whose death set off the First World War. The story starts out with Alec being taken away from his home in the middle of the night, and he's not really being told why. First he's told that he's going out for some training, and then he realizes that he's being permanently taken away, and at first he's very suspicious, and then he realizes that he's actually being helped because his parents were assassinated, and now the Germans and the Austrians are trying to kill him so that he cannot claim the empire that is rightfully his. Or rather would be his when the emperor dies. The other main character, Deryn, I think her name is Deryn, I don't know, it's spelled D-E-R-Y-N, so it might be Darren, but I'm gonna go with Deryn. Anyway, she really wants to fight in the air service. But this is not your typical air service. England, Russia, France, and I think a couple of other countries are Darwinists, which means that they are creating these beings that are like crossbreeds. They're called fabrications. And they're basically using these as vehicles for war and weapons and things like that. So Deryn disguises herself as a boy, Dylan, goes to take her test to become a MIDI in the service, and she goes up in this thing called a Huxley, which is basically a flying jellyfish, and she can't come down and she gets like thrown around in the wind until the Leviathan comes and saves her. The Leviathan is basically a giant blimp, except that it's a whale and, you know, is like a living being but also a ship. So the crew of the Leviathan rescues her and let her be part of the crew even though she hasn't taken her test. The story is told in third person, but it goes back and forth between chapters about Alec and chapters about Deryn. About halfway through this story, their lives collide and their stories come together. But it still keeps up that switching off between being told about Alec and Deryn so that you know what's going on in both of their heads. I really like the way this is told, and it's a really interesting story, so I highly recommend this trilogy to anyone, and I'm excited because I get to see Scott Westerfeld at the end of the week. Stella, I hope to see you on Wednesday.